prickly. You'll have some vines, but this is obviously not a vine. So I don't think there's anything I would confuse.
So is that a bush?
It's a bush. Tends to be, on the lowest scale, you'll have ones about this tall, but it'll get up to here.
Did you bring any of that Sangre de Cristo? Or
no, I didn't bring that one. It doesn't grow here. Here's another one in the Euphorbia family. Avoid, poisonous, wild poinsettia. And you can probably actually gather it before you grow it in your garden. It's not the big showy poinsettia like you buy in the store, but the tips of the leaves do turn red halfway.
How tall does that grow?
It's about as tall as it gets.
It's poisonous. As tall as your chest, maybe, right?
No, this is the whole plant. Here's the root. It only gets like this tall, but
so that is poisonous.
yes. Most of the euphorbias are. And here's another one. Most of the milkweeds are poisonous. Now, I had a fruit of this summer. Where did I put that fruit? It's very distinct.
It's a purple root right there. Looks like purple.
It looks like a red horn. Maybe I don't have it today.
It's right here in the front.
What is that one? Okay.
This?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I accidentally left it at home, along with my Margarita jam, unfortunately. But this is antelope horns. It's listed in the books as poisonous, but some people use the tender new shoots as a green. They boil them though. They don't eat them raw. So there are some milkweeds that are edible. Just do your research and make sure it's the right one, because a lot of the milkweeds have. I'm going to cut it and show you what comes out of here. They call them milkweeds for a reason. They have this milky sap. Now, most plants that have this milky sap, especially that much of it, you're going to want to avoid. Wow. That's sticky stuff. The exception is dandelion. I didn't bring a dandelion with me because you probably all know what it is. It's not a native plant, but it was introduced. It's great. If you look up here, dandelion greens are one of the greens that have many more calories if you get the young ones. The problem is, to survive, you need to eat 500 to 1,000 dandelion whole plants in a day to survive. But they're packed with vitamins. They do have calories. And actually, the flower heads themselves, the yellow flower head of the dandelions, is wonderfully sweet. At least I think it is. Compared to other wild foods, it's good. And you can eat the whole plant, the root too. You can eat the root. You can actually make a coffee substitute, no caffeine, but it kind of looks like coffee, kind of tastes like coffee. You roast the root, grind it up. Okay, we're almost done with most of the plants.
Sulfur?
Not yet, almost. Here's another one that a lot of people in Texas think is a weed, but I find very useful, is juniper. Or our specific species is ash juniper. Or some people call it cedar. It's not cedar, it's juniper. And you can't really eat it, but it does have a lot of uses. Some of the berries, the ones out in the West Texas, they'll be a reddish color. In New Mexico, they're huge red berries, and you can eat them, and they taste good. These ones, though, have a little bit too much resin. Juniper trees have a large amounts of natural resin, like turpentine-like substances, which makes them great for starting fire. The wood is also very soft, great to carve and make things with. And the bark is extremely useful. This is what the bark looks like when you first take it off the tree. Peel it off. You peel off in very long strips, 6, 7 feet tall, depending on how you get from an older tree, so you have thicker bark.
Will it kill the tree when you do that?
Ash juniper.
Will it kill the tree when you do that? If you peel the bark off?
It hasn't killed the tree, so as long as you don't go too deep and don't take it off the entire tree, it should be alright.
Okay.
But you can make mats. This is a tiny mat. I've made much, much larger mats with this stuff. It's great for making mats.
A lot of people eat that berry because they say
it's used as a flavoring. That's something you don't want to overdo. Like you can just, if you want to taste a berry, you can chew on a berry, you just spit it out, but you'll see a powerful, powerful resin flavor when you taste it. But some people use it to flavor wild game like venison. It's supposed to be good for that. But the bark, though, is the #1 best stuff to use in this area for starting friction fires. And after this is over, I'll take you outside and I'll start a friction fire, which is probably something most of you have not seen before except in movies. Okay, we're done with most of the plants, most of the greens and fruits, and a few nuts. I'll talk a little about pecan. There's another important plant, though, kind of what y'all were talking about with sprouts and so forth. This is one of your superfoods if you are a forager. Wild green. For a little tiny handful, 101 calories and 4 grams of protein. That's pretty good. So that's something you want to go after. The problem is, not all wild grasses have seeds that are worth the effort. I'll show you what I'm talking about. I just started really getting into experimenting with different wild grains. I've done it before a few years in Montana. I did a survival trip up there for 2 weeks living off the land, and there was a kind of a grain that was growing along rivers, and you could just easily shake the heads into a bag and the seeds would drop out. Most grains, a lot of grains are not like that though. The seeds will stick in the chaff. You've got to beat them. You've got to separate them from the chaff somehow by tossing them up in a wind, letting the wind blow away the chaff, or by sifting them if they're a very small seed. Here's one of the first grasses that I experimented with. It's called rescue grass. I was obviously able to gather an enormous amount of grass seed in less than an hour. The problem is it's very difficult to get out of the chaff, and the seed is very small. So this one I would not go after again. However, there were some fantastic seeds that I've found in the past week, and I've actually made some stuff out of them. Now, these I just gathered yesterday, and I processed them yesterday, did everything yesterday in less than 2 hours, but I have not had a chance to identify them yet. So if there's any grass experts here, please take a look at them at the end and see if you can help me figure out what they are.
Well, all grasses are edible. Right?
Yes, all grasses. There's several cautions about wild grass seeds. The seeds themselves can have a fungus called ergo. This can be a black powder or a fungus that fills up the entire seed. It contains some poisons and also the source of LSD. So avoid it. It will kill you. After you hallucinate, you'll die if you eat too much of this stuff. Also, some of the grass stems, when they get large, they contain cyanide-like compounds. So avoid large grass stems if you want to eat those, like the mature, heavy grass stems. And they also contain silica, which is the same molecule found in glass and chert, and it will rip you up pretty good.
Don't eat the stems.
Not that mature stems. Fresh grass stems are good, like when they're just coming up, the shoots, the sprouts. Okay, here's something like a wild wheat. I found it growing all over the sides of the highway, everywhere. And I just gathered a tiny, tiny amount in about 30 minutes, all by hand. No tools, no baskets, nothing. And then I separated it by hand. I took the heads and rolled them on a rough surface, and then just tossed them up in the air or poured them and let all the chaff blow away. I was able to gather this much of this. I think it's a wild wheat. I gathered this much gathered in about 20-30 minutes. The processing only took like another 20 minutes, so it's pretty good. And in this amount, I have 385 calories. That's huge. And if you look up there how many calories I'm using walking, it'll keep me going for a couple of hours. Just that.
That's problem.
And if you're using, like, if you have a few tools to help you, you could gather enough of this stuff to keep you going for a long time.
And if you sprouted it, you can have even more.
Exactly.
You mill it.
Yeah.
The only thing, if you're in a survival situation, correct me if I'm wrong, I think when you sprout it, some of the lipids are converted into proteins. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you're going to lose a little bit of the calories. So in a
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, sprouts have almost 0 calories. People will lose weight while gaining a lot of energy, actually, but not from calories.
Okay.
You have to get it from protein. Or
and today we don't want calories. We have too many. But if you're trying to survive, you want those calories. You're constantly going to be calorie deficient.
So sprouts would not be something that you want to be.
And I don't even know if you'd be able to sprout them. Like, if you're constantly moving, you'd have to carry your sprouts with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, here's another one. Now, this grass seed is extremely small. It kind of looks like grandma, but I don't know. But it was very easy to extract from its hull, so this is one I definitely go after. I was able to gather this amount in, again, less than an hour of processing, 197 calories. So that can keep me going for an hour, a little over an hour of walking, or if I just sit still, maybe 2 or 3 hours.
What did it look like on the stem?
Oh, this is the actual grass seed right here. This one's growing along the roads out in Milkweed. It's inside of here. So this is the chaff. This is the covering of the grass seed.
So how did you do that again?
Again, you just take it on the ground and rub it just a little bit. It doesn't take much, and the seeds all drop out. And with this one, instead of winnowing it, I put it through a sifter. Because the seeds are so small, it just sifted them away from the chaff very quickly.
Nice.
Now here's another one. I have no idea what this one is. But, again, this was one that was fairly easy to process. And I actually made myself a cookie out of it. Now what I did with this, after I took the grains out, I just took a molcajete bowl like you make salsa with, just ground them very roughly, just enough so I'd get a lot of sticky stuff that would hold the seeds together, so it's kind of like a little seed cake. And if I were to keep grinding it more, I would have had a fantastic flour, like you could actually make balls of dough. And this is packed with calories. This little guy is extremely dense food, 83 calories.
Did you cook that, or you just?
I just barely dried it in the oven. Just put it in the oven long enough so it would stick together.